They noticed the tattoo first. A small mark inked on her forearm, nothing flashy, nothing loud, just a symbol that carried a weight no one in that crowded room could possibly understand. They laughed, whispered behind her back, called it a joke, a decoration that didn't belong in the company of hardened soldiers. But when the Navy SEAL commander walked in, stopped dead in his tracks, and raised his hand in a sharp salute, every sneer disappeared and the room froze in stunned silence. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to her, because this is a story about legacy, respect, and how one woman's quiet strength silenced a room full of doubters. Her name was Claire Donovan, a medic who had served overseas in some of the most dangerous zones on Earth. To the untrained eye, she was just another young woman in uniform, quiet, unassuming, the kind who blended in with the crowd. But her tattoo told a different story. Etched in fine black ink was a trident crossed with a dagger, encircled by a single ring of stars. It wasn't something you'd find in a catalog of popular designs. It was personal, sacred, and deeply tied to a legacy most people could never claim. Yet when she arrived at the new base for assignment, the others saw only what they wanted to see, a woman with a strange tattoo trying too hard to impress. They smirked, mocked her in whispers, and some even laughed outright. What none of them knew was that tattoo had been given to her by her late father, a SEAL who had been decorated for valor but had died in a classified mission no one was allowed to speak about. Claire had carried that mark since the night before he left for his final deployment. To her, it was more than ink, it was a promise, a connection, and a constant reminder that sacrifice and honor were not just words but bloodlines. On her first day, the mocking grew louder. One of the soldiers, a broad-shouldered sergeant, sneered, "Nice tattoo, sweetheart. Trying to play Navy SEAL with the big boys?" Laughter echoed through the mess hall, and though Claire felt the sting, she kept her eyes steady, her expression calm. She didn't need to explain herself, not yet. She had learned long ago that respect couldn't be demanded, it had to be earned, and sometimes it came only when you least expected it. That moment arrived sooner than anyone imagined. A few days later, the unit gathered for a high-level briefing. The SEAL commander, a man with a reputation carved out of years of combat and leadership, entered the room. His presence silenced conversations instantly. Eyes shifted to him, attention sharpened, but then something unusual happened. As he walked past the rows of soldiers, his gaze fell on Claire's tattoo. He froze mid-step. The room held its breath, confused by his sudden pause. Then, slowly, deliberately, the commander straightened, turned toward her, and brought his hand up in a crisp salute. Every jaw in the room dropped. Soldiers who had mocked her just days before stared in disbelief. No one understood why one of the most respected SEALs alive was saluting a medic barely anyone knew. Claire rose quietly, returning the salute with respect, her eyes glistening but steady. For her, it wasn't about recognition, it was about the silent acknowledgement of the bloodline and the sacrifice her family had made. For the others, it was the moment they realized they had judged someone far above their own measure. But the story didn't end there. Rumors spread through the base like wildfire. Who was she? What did that tattoo mean? Why had the commander, a man who saluted almost no one, shown her that kind of respect? Whispers turned into questions, questions turned into doubt, and then came the twist no one saw coming. An urgent mission unfolded days later, one that required precision, courage, and medical expertise under fire. Claire was deployed with the team despite doubts from some who still didn't fully trust her. When chaos erupted on the battlefield and soldiers fell wounded, Claire moved with the speed and confidence of someone who had trained all her life for this moment. Bullets tore through the air, explosions rocked the ground, but she never hesitated. She dragged men twice her size to safety, stabilized critical wounds under fire, and coordinated extractions with the cool precision of a veteran. At one point, the team came under such heavy attack that retreat seemed impossible. Radios jammed, smoke clouded vision, and panic began to set in. It was Claire who found a way through. Using landmarks her father had once described during his own missions, she guided the unit out of the kill zone and toward safety. Her calm voice cut through fear, and her knowledge saved lives. By the time they made it back to the extraction point, not one soldier doubted her anymore. Back at the base, silence hung heavy as the commander addressed the team. He singled out Claire, not just for her bravery, but for the legacy she carried. "That tattoo you all laughed at," he said, his voice hard and unflinching, "isn't ink for decoration. It's a mark of sacrifice. Her father wore the trident with honor, and she carries it with pride. You owe her more than respect, you owe her your lives." From that day forward, the mocking was gone. Soldiers who had once laughed at her tattoo now saw it as a symbol of honor, one tied not only to her father's sacrifice but to her own courage and strength. Claire never sought to be the center of attention, but she became something greater, a quiet force of respect, proof that true power often wears no loud face, just steady eyes and an unbreakable heart. Her story spread beyond the base, whispered in awe, retold with reverence. And every time she looked at the tattoo on her arm, she didn't think of the laughter or the judgment she had endured. She thought of the salute, the battlefield, and the moment when respect replaced ridicule. They laughed at the tattoo, until the SEAL commander saluted her and everyone froze. So now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this story from? Which part of the country are you tuning in from today?